Take it over, Sal.
Jose's supposed to sit here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. This is going to be a little bit different than a council meeting. We're going to go ahead and start with our presentations. We'll take public comment at the end of the presentations. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? So any cards, we're going to go ahead and close the cards, any presentations. So if you can bring me the cards, that'd be great. And I'll leave it up to you, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tinajero, members of City Council. We had been working over the last month or so to prepare for this special meeting based on the request of council members. And we do have a slide that I'd like to put up. And we will focus today, of course, on your brainstorming and your ideas and hearing from the public. But we do want to give an overview of all the work that's been done in the area of preventing and trying to eliminate homelessness. The City of Santa Ana's efforts to date, we have partners here for best practices and programs that are models in the United States. We also have members and leaders from the Orange County Commission to End Homelessness. And then we'll follow, of course, with your brainstorming, input, direction, and hearing from the public. And we, next slide, want everybody to know that this is critical to the City of Santa Ana. It's extremely important. And we have this in our strategic plan. The council voted on this, of course, unanimously. We had great input from the council. But we are working towards a strategy to collaborate with government agencies and community groups to provide resources for the homeless population. And also to make sure that Santa Ana has the kind of community livability, engagement, and sustainability that we need to implement the emergency shelter and transitional housing ordinance, working to find good locations. We've done a lot of work in that area within industrial areas to meet all the required development and operational standards. We have, as you can see from your background materials, made progress. When you look at what we have done, lots of work has been done nationally. We follow the trend, but the population for homeless has decreased from 2011 to the current 2013 numbers. And in Santa Ana, which is 20% of the Orange County population, is decreased. And then Santa Ana's unmet homeless need is almost half of what it was a few years ago. So there's been a lot of progress, but obviously 532 is too many. We need to do work in that area, especially when it comes to special needs like veterans. So I do want everybody to know that the school district also has a definition which is much broader than that was used in the PIT survey, and that information is available in your handout. And I want to introduce some people. I want to do it up front. We're going to hear from staff first, but I think it's important to recognize individuals that will be speaking today. From CityNet is Brad Fieldhouse. If you could raise your hand. Thank you so much. And then also from Mercy House, Larry Haynes. Thank you so much. And then Alan Roeder, retired city manager, and Karen Roper from the Commission to End Homelessness. And I do want to announce that I have been appointed to be on that task force, and I'm really proud that the first commission that I was on was to end homelessness, and I'm really proud of that, and I will do my best to represent the City of Santa Ana. So without further ado, Terry Eggers will be the first speaker. Thank you, Terry.
Good evening. The city receives federal grants on an annual basis where resources can be used for the homeless. With these funds, we partner with homeless service providers to assist individuals and families regain stability in housing after experiencing a housing crisis or homelessness. Through the Emergency Shelter Program, better known as ESG, funds are specifically utilized for the homeless in the following categories. In the past fiscal year, over 900 Santa Ana residents were provided services through street outreach efforts. Over 880 Santa Ana residents were served in emergency shelters. Over 190 Santa Ana residents were provided services in homelessness prevention activities. And over 100 Santa Ana residents were provided services in rapid rehousing activities. The housing needs of homeless persons with special needs, such as victims of domestic violence and persons with HIV/AIDS, were also met by activities funded by the city. I would now like to introduce Shelley Landry Bale, who will speak on our affordable housing in Santa Ana.
Good afternoon. Throughout the city, there are a total of, or more than, 2,400 affordable units. Of those, 2,355 are rental units. They all have deed and rent restrictions, ranging anywhere from 30% of the area median income to 80%, or extremely low to low income. There will be actually an additional 146 units coming online within the next 24 to 36 months. In addition, we have over 100 for-sale units, home ownership opportunities, and within the next year, 12 months, we will have an additional 11 units. In addition, the city has funded 4 transitional housing projects in the city, 2 of which are dedicated to persons living with HIV/AIDS. And lastly, for the last 13 years, the Housing Authority has contracted with Mercy Housing and to provide 10 housing choice vouchers to their program graduates. As part of that contract, Mercy Housing continues to provide supportive services in order to ensure that the program graduates are successful in their transition into permanent housing. And next will be Chief Rojas, who will speak about the police department's HEART program and public safety.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. And I want to tell you a little bit about the HEART program. I know many of you are very familiar with it. It did start in November of 2012. And since then, we've been able to really roll out the HEART program throughout the city, not just the Civic Center. Oftentimes, we just focus on the Civic Center, but we do look at homelessness, not only in the Civic Center, but in the park areas, as well as the creeks and the freeway overpasses. So our Civic Center officers that do work that program are trained in crisis intervention, and really it's a posture that we take to try to find a viable solution for these folks that are homeless. And just to give you a brief example, we work with various nonprofits, and to date we've had 13 veterans that we've been able to help find shelter, and another 5 that we're currently working with right now through Veterans First and Veterans Assistance, which are a couple of the nonprofits. And really this program is designed to collaborate not only with city agencies, but county, federal, and state partners as well. And in terms of public safety, our concerns are for visitors, they're for our residents, anybody who comes down to the Civic Center area to do business, as well as our homeless population that you see in and around the Civic Center. And the things that we really focus on from a public safety standpoint are those felony crimes, health and safety, sanitation issues, and we really try to minimize the impact of abandoned property. Just walking up here today, I saw numerous large items up against the building, and that's very problematic from a public safety standpoint. Not necessarily from an individual person standpoint, but from a Homeland Security standpoint, to have unknown packages leaning up against the buildings. So that is a concern of ours, and we try to work with the folks that are out there. And what I want to tell you about our abandoned property, we do have a procedure that meets state and city law requirements, And it's not something that, if you look around the Civic Center, it's not something where we're doing sweeps and taking everybody's property. We try to work with the folks to really minimize the impact, because this isn't about just one person, one individual, one group. I think it's about all of us as a community working together to try to find solutions for some of these folks, and to also increase the quality of life and the quality of environment that we see here in the Civic Center for those people that visit or work here in the area. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. I have a couple of slides to talk about the anti-camping ordinance.
Can you read?
Thank you. Yeah. After unsuccessful attempts to regulate the use of the Civic Center, the City of Santa Ana...
I still need you to put the mic up a little bit.
Okay.
There you go.
Too tall for this.
There
Is
you
that
go.
better? Okay. In 1992, the city leaders adopted an anti-camping ordinance. This was a major milestone in the city's efforts to address the use of the Civic Center for camping. The ordinance prohibited camping and/or the storage of personal property in the Civic Center, as well as other public rights-of-way. The purpose of the anti-camping ordinance was to maintain the public streets and the areas within the city of Santa Ana clean and in a clean condition and accessible condition for other residents. The ordinance made it unlawful to camp or store personal property within the Civic Center and other public rights-of-way. Almost immediately after the city passed the anti-camping ordinance in 1992, the city was sued on constitutional grounds. We go to the next slide, please. This case went all the way to the California State Supreme Court. The alleged ordinance, the ordinance was alleged to be a violation of plaintiff's constitutional rights to travel. It was alleged to be an unlawful ordinance that prosecuted people based on status, and it was also attacked on the grounds of vagueness. Eventually, the Supreme Court upheld every single ground of challenge and ruled that the ordinance was valid on all grounds. Most importantly, the court ruled that there was no fundamental right to camp on public property. And by the way, more than 90 cities and the State Association of Governments, counties, filed briefs in support of the city of Santa Ana in this case. Finally, I just want to conclude by saying that the city's anti-camping ordinance was the first and is also the model that other cities followed in the state of California, and it's still good today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval.
Hi, my name is Melanie McCann with the Planning Division. I wanted to give you just a few highlights to remind you about SB 2. As you know, Senate Bill 2 was enacted by the state legislator to require all cities to be more involved in solutions for homelessness. First of all, it required that each city identify its number of homeless persons in its community. Secondly, to identify at least one zone where those emergency shelters to assist could be allowed by right. As you know, our emergency shelter ordinance was adopted in September of 2013, and that was
I'm sorry,
followed...
can you go back a couple of sentences?
Sure,
Just to
for the...
make sure everyone hears.
Yes. So one of the things that Senate Bill 2 requires is that each community identify one or two, at least one zone where emergency shelters can be allowed by right. And Santa Ana adopted our emergency shelter ordinance in September of 2013 with a lot of community input and assistance from our community and service providers. Following that in January 2014, we also included a lot of proactive, positive policies to further assist in ending homelessness and prevention in Santa Ana. This, as you might recall, is a map that shows where emergency shelters may be allowed by right. The purple area, the lighter purple area, identifies our industrial zones, and that area equates to 995 acres where emergency shelters may be allowed by right. There are two types of emergency shelters identified in our ordinance. The first one is what's called a multi-service center for homeless, and that one is a minimum of 150 beds, but no more than 200 beds. Our ordinance only allows one of these multi-service centers, and it would be open during the daytime with support services for those in need. The second type of shelter would be for 30 beds, maximum of 30 beds, and any greater number than that would require a conditional use permit. So those are the two types of homeless shelter facilities allowed. Another thing that was approved by council at the time was to allow for a limited amount of expansion for our existing emergency shelter, which is the Salvation Army. It would allow an expansion of only up to 75 beds, and that's provided that the development standards, architectural standards and such would be met with that expansion. The last component, and this is the last slide for me, is the very key management and operational plan. The ordinance required that each shelter put together a plan that the planning manager and the chief of police would approve, and it would incorporate best practices. It would identify specific security and transportation plans. It would identify how that shelter would be a good neighbor through a communication plan. It identified the specifics on the intake process and all the other details that would lead to its success.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, if we could introduce, and he's in the audience, Senator Lou Correa. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Who's up next? Is it Fieldhouse?
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, appreciate the opportunity to share about the work going on in Anaheim. Since 2003, I'm the executive director of an nonprofit called CityNet, and we're a faith-based organization, and we help multi-sector collaboratives addressing common community concerns, and we've been hired by the City of Anaheim, and I'm here to talk about that report today. I'm here with my colleague, Matt Bates. He's the project manager for the project. As in most cities, there's a current reality picture that is sort of true to their context. I want to draw your attention to the Anaheim Police Department statistic. First, we were pursued by the Anaheim Police Department initially. Based on that statistic right there is that they were experiencing 503 phone calls per month related to homeless issues, and on their admission and their frustration, most of those are completely unresolved. It's basically officers showing up saying, please move on, and close the call. So they were part and are part of this original conversation to help address the community concern, and you can see some of the other ones that are there. One of the first things we bumped into when we arrived in Anaheim, which was late fall, was in La Palma Park. There were 13 entities feeding meals on any given Sunday. There are 13 organizations feeding, most of them faith-based. 13 organizations on any given Sunday were serving and providing food to the homeless. One way to look at that is seeing that as, does that make any sense? Of course not. But it's another way to look at it as there's 13 organizations that have sort of gone out of their way to sort of position themselves to be helpful. They just didn't know how to sort of link their desire to help into a strategic sort of way. So we saw that as an asset, and we built off that, and there's actually tremendous organizations, a lot of people doing a lot of great things in the city of Anaheim. It's just not necessarily coordinated. Some of that you see listed there. Anaheim Police Department has formed homeless liaison officer teams, as well as PERT teams, which includes a mental health technician that rides every day of the week with officers. There's a complete city council resolve in the sense that they are committed to not just stick their head in the sands, but to address this and do what they can for the betterment of the entire community. This multi-service center possibility, that's an active conversation in the city. Many faith-based components were willing and ready to integrate themselves into a plan. They just had never felt necessarily welcome to the conversation or knew where to even go to get into that conversation. There's a poverty task force made up of a lot of religious leaders and community advocates that were sort of holding the feet to the fire of 10-year plan. Came with some strong recommendations. On and on and on and on. A lot of organizations doing a lot of amazing things, trying to make a difference. What that looked like was this. The idea of sort of a lot of people trying to do a lot of things, and there was no place to coordinate the conversations. Everybody would express the desire that ultimately the quickest and the best and the most honoring and dignifying way to address this is to look at a situation and see what resources currently available or gaps might there be to sort of address this. What we did is we were contracted by the city to do a collaboration. There's lots of ways you can work together. You can share information and just say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Another level would be cooperate, where you can say, you know what, if you do this on this day, we won't do this. So we're at least not duplicating efforts. What we've done in Anaheim is a coordinated approach where we literally sit down every other week with anybody who's willing to partner. City staff, police department, Anaheim Fire and Rescue, nonprofits, community activists, clergy, on and on and on. And we sit down on an every other week basis, and we actually do collaborative case management. I'll share you exactly what we do in terms of our work plan here in a second. We have over 60 individuals and entities that are part of this collaborative on an every other week basis. That's a partial list of some of them. What we do is we actually help the city understand the current reality so that you sort of have a ready, aim, fire approach to address this, so you're not just sort of responding to whatever particular moment-by-moment crisis. There are a lot of complex issues, and so we bring those to the table. We lead this as a neutral collaborator in order to galvanize the existing partnerships and drive them towards an action plan. We work on 90-day action plans. Our commitment is to bring execution to passion and integrate as a key component the faith-based community, being a faith-based organization ourselves. Last two slides here is what we have done. This is our first 180-day goals. We were contracted. We started in January. Our goal was collectively to address and help 50 currently homeless households off the streets in the first 180 days, and at least on the path to supportive housing. Goal is to rope in and enroll strategically 14 congregations as part of this project, raise resources from the community to stock the police cupboards so they had options besides only handcuffs or the perception of only handcuffs, to fill their cupboards, their resource kit, if you will, $32,000 of community investment, and to lower the police response calls by 20% in 180 days. As of yesterday, here's where the collaborative and all the partners working together, here's where we're at. We've moved in 99 households off the streets, representing 154 individuals. We have 12 congregations integrating their existing or new efforts as part of the citywide broader collaborative plan. We are making monthly payments now, and we have been for 3 months, into the Police Department Resource Fund. And so far, year to date, again, a lot of reasons why these numbers are going down. 13% reduction in homeless service calls by the police department in Anaheim. We're doing another number of other projects that come up as response. You see those there. Thanks for letting us share.
Larry Haynes is next. We have a couple more speakers.
Like one of the few people I actually have to pull this down for. That doesn't happen too often. Thanks, Brad. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Larry Haynes. I'm the Executive Director of Mercy House. First off, I want to say thank you for our long-standing partnership. I started with Mercy House on May 1st, 1990. I was our first employee. We were serving 10 men in transitional shelter out on Main Street. We had no assets, $25,000 in the bank that had to pay for utilities and repairs and salaries and everything. And it just seemed like a great opportunity for me at the time. So somehow it's worked out over these last 24 years. When we first started, we were so small, we had to hold all of our staff meetings and any business meetings at, I don't know if you all recall, the old Bristol's Cafe there on like Main and 14th. That's where we would have to meet because we literally didn't have the space to grow. Since then, we've sort of flourished into an all-encompassing homeless service organization, everything from prevention to emergency shelter and services, transitional housing, as well as permanent housing. Today, we serve, we shelter and house roughly 3,000 people a year and serve an additional 2,000 to 2,500 in our access centers, depending on the year. Specific to Santa Ana, we have, over the years, taken literally thousands of people off the streets, Santa Ana residents. We have served thousands of people in our shelters with roughly, historically, a 90% success rate. In addition to that, through our rapid rehousing and prevention programs, we have prevented, just in the last 4 years alone, several hundred Santa Ana residents from becoming homeless, and several hundred Santa Ana people who were living in Santa Ana on the streets and moved them into permanent housing. All of this is because of the investment that you guys made in us back in 1990 and because of the partnerships that we've had. And we attribute a big part of our success, at least locally, not only to our work and your support, because of a holistic approach where we work with the entire community. In this city alone, we were well known for working with the neighborhood association movement. We've sat on the boards of the French Court Neighborhood Association, Historic French Park. These are groups that, if you go and run the tapes, it's interesting, actually come to council members asking for your support for our projects, usually the reverse of what happens for a lot of homeless service organizations. You know, our HIV housing projects, both San Miguel and Emmanuel House, wouldn't have happened if Historic French Park didn't come out and lobby council in our support. Again, usually it's the reverse, but because of our communal investment in the way that we want to see change, we've had a very, very blessed relationship here in the city of Santa Ana. But that's all in the past. What I want to talk about, and I think what is probably most important, if I could be so bold, is to talk about what do we do now? And with your indulgence, I'd like to highlight, not that there aren't other things that could be done that don't make an impact on homeless issues, but if I could just highlight what I would consider the 4 bold strokes that I would make if I were in your situation or city manager's situation that can make a difference in Santa Ana's homeless population. First off, we need to begin with a premise that homelessness is something to end, not simply something to manage. And the reason that is important is that once you have that concept, everything changes. Who you want to serve, the types of services that you want to deliver, everything changes. There is no, oh gosh, this is a difficult person, therefore I don't want to serve them. We have to figure out a way to serve the so-called service resistant, otherwise we're never going to end homelessness. Now I realize that that sounds like so much rah-rah nonsense, but if I may, just 1 minute. So the first thing I think we need to do, both as a city, and if I could put this in a macro perspective from all of Orange County, we need to understand and value the importance of data and evidence. Now, I know that sounds basic, but so much of what drives social policy is bias and ideology and anecdotal evidence. I would urge you as a council and as city leadership not to buy into that, oh, I saw so-and-so. Let the data speak for itself. Let what we do be evidence-driven, not ideological-driven. And we'll find that we will make a huge, huge difference. The second thing, the second bold step, we need to, in addition to data, is to buy into a centralized assessment and intake. Now, you're going to hear more about that, I suspect, with some of the later speakers, but there's a movement within the county to try and have a centralized assessment and intake system whereby there is a singular spot where people can do assessments and make the right placements. Why do we want to do that? Well, number one, we want to do that because we need to understand exactly the nature and the scope of the problem. And we're not going to do that if we have all these different silos of information and services. It's got to be brought under one roof. You're going to hear organizations who don't want to participate in things like that. Right? We don't want to for several reasons. One, we may not like the referrals we get, or there may be difficult cases. We can't shy away from that. I'm happy to say the tide is turning on that, and most of my colleagues out there are accepting of this idea. We have to have a centralized intake so we can look at this from a macro perspective. The third thing that we need to do is we need to replace the armories. I'm not saying we need to get rid of emergency shelter, but we have to get rid of the armories. They are not effective, they are not efficient from a cost perspective. They are absolutely necessary, but we can do better. We can do better. What we need is a year-round emergency shelter system. Shame on us as a county that we don't have those things. Most places do. And we need at least 2 locations to replace what is currently existing in Fullerton and in Santa Ana. Now, as you well know, we have been the operator of these facilities for some time now, but what we need is something year-round. And the reason that we need that year-round is very obvious. One, because without shelter, there are people literally every year dying on the streets. And that is absolutely unconscionable in one of the wealthiest counties in the entire country. We cannot let that happen one more time. I know my staff and I have attended too many funerals over the last couple of years. We've got to do better. Number 2, this is a place to centralize and to stage, to get people connected to the benefits and resources necessary to get them up and off the streets. So these shelters are necessary so we can actually and adequately address the problem. It also can serve as a great and useful tool for the city. As you try, as police departments and so forth need a resource, that's exactly what these places can provide. Now, all of that sounds good. But these three steps, quite candidly, guys, are just prerequisites. Services, shelters are not the answer. Services and shelter are not going to end homelessness. The thing that ends homelessness is elegantly simple: housing. We must have housing strategies. We must build permanent supportive housing, and we must invest in rapid rehousing strategies to get these folks placed. The reason that we need data, the reason that we need the centralized intake system, the reason that we need the year-round emergency shelter is that creates the platform for which housing works. And those are the four things that we need. The good news is this. I apologize for the preacher tone, but the good news is this. If we follow the data, if we follow the evidence, to our surprise, in one of the worst economies we've seen in a while, the numbers are actually going down when best practices are employed. We know how to end homelessness. We just need to do it. And as daunting as Santa Ana's issue looks right now, we can end homelessness in Santa Ana more simply than we think. Thank you so much for your time and support.
Thank you, Larry.
Alan Roeder and Karen Roper.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and council members. One always hates to follow Larry when he is inspired to his heart. On behalf of the Commission to End Homelessness and its Executive Director, Karen Roper, let me thank you for inviting us to be here today to be part of your presentation. I have a little bit of background in working with your community and having served as city manager in your neighboring community of Costa Mesa for 25 years, so I know the talent that this city and your city organization has, and I have complete confidence in your ability with the other 33 cities in Orange County to address this challenge. I will briefly address the commission and its organization, and then Karen Roper will get into more of the details. The commission itself was established in roughly 2012 following the creation of the Orange County Plan to End Homelessness, or the 10-year plan. That effort was undertaken in 2008 pursuant to state and federal initiatives on homelessness. The draft plan was completed in 2010 with the final plan completed in 2012. And I should note that the plan to end homelessness had very broad participation from throughout Orange County, both public and private sector, providers, faith-based communities, so it was very much a collaborative effort. As you'll note from the slide, the Commission to End Homelessness is quite varied. It includes representation from county government, from municipal government, including elected officials, city managers, and I'm honored to serve with your city manager in representing our profession on the commission. Also includes law enforcement, fire and EMS, the private sector, providers, and the homeless community itself as representation on the commission. We are charged with the responsibility of implementing the plan, and as Larry said, that means ending homelessness, not managing homelessness, and making recommendations to the County of Orange on policy matters in the annual Continuum of Care application, which is significant given the federal dollars that we receive here in Orange County. Under direction of the Commission, we have an executive committee that is on the slide before you that includes representation from what we term as implementing groups. These are basically the groups that do all the nuts and bolts work in between commission meetings. And under the implementing groups, we also have a variety of subcommittees that involve providers, that involve public sector, that involves private sector participation, and subcommittees and the executive committee and the implementation committee and the commission itself, all of those meetings, and they are numerous in terms of their efforts, all are conducted under the Brown Act, all are open meetings, posted agendas, and we encourage public participation in those efforts. In addition to the commission itself, members of the commission and county staff have made a concerted effort to reach out to cities in Orange County. And with many of the other challenges facing this county, it takes participation by all 34 cities. No one of us can do that alone. And one of the things that frequently comes to my mind on this issue as it relates to cities is that we have all been pulling for the same cause, but not always in the same direction. And our outreach to cities has frankly been well received in those communities that we've been allowed to address. That's included city councils, executive staff, the Association of California Cities Orange County, as well as several other groups, and we will continue that outreach to continue to encourage participation throughout Orange County, because this is a shared responsibility, not the responsibility of any one community. With that, I'd like to invite Karen Roper up to give you the balance of the presentation.
Honorable council members, thank you. I'd be happy to advance my slides from here if that's okay. I am just so honored to be here, and before I talk about the goals and strategies in the 10-year plan, I wanted to take a few moments to thank you. And I had a number of things that I wanted to thank you for. First of all, I want to thank you for your leadership and direction to the city to have this council meeting. I want to thank you for the fact that the leadership that you have with your city manager, I have never seen anything like it. These meetings that we've had the police chief, we've had the planning department, we've had the housing authority, we've had community services, all the players coming together to focus on this issue and look at a solution. I am thrilled that we have Mr. Cavazos as an appointment to the Commission to End Homelessness, because when we sat around the table as a public-private group to look at what were the best practices in ending homelessness, guess where one of the areas that we happened to focus on that was making huge advancements in ending homelessness? Phoenix! And imagine that we have this city manager now on our Commission to End Homelessness. I'm so excited. Also, why do I want to thank you? The only jurisdiction in the entire Orange County of the 34 cities, aside from the county, because we did this too, that has a one-time 200-bed provision for a year emergency shelter and multi-service center. That is phenomenal, and that shows smart policies to remove barriers to end homelessness, because that by right approval, when you think about the issues associated with NIMBY, that has really prevented so many emergency shelters from getting in the ground. So congratulations to you. Thank you for being a host city to the Armory in Santa Ana since 1987. Your city has been a host to help the homeless. Thank you for the funding that you provide to Mercy House to operate the seasonal shelters. I just want to thank you for your leadership and your commitment, and to tell you what an honor it is to be here at the table with you. We are at, I believe, the most exciting time in Orange County's history in terms of ending homelessness. And it's hard to follow in the footsteps of Larry Haynes. I felt like I was in church listening to him because I'm so excited. We can really do this. And so as I thank you, I want to just move into a quick overview of the 10-year plan to end homelessness. You heard some common themes about collective impact, coordination. What you saw Brad talk about at a local city level, the 10-year plan is doing at a macro level in terms of coordinating multiple pieces and ending homelessness. It's a complex issue, but it is possible to end homelessness, as you heard Larry say. So let's talk about what the goals are. So the first goal to end homelessness is to prevent more people from moving into homelessness. And some of the strategies that we're focusing on are best practices that work: eviction prevention assistance, utility assistance, food assistance, life skills training. Things, if you can get to the person or the family before they actually move into homelessness, you can stem the tide of the issue. And we looked at trying to coordinate these resources in access centers or a multi-service center. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. Also, outreaching to those that are homeless. There are the chronically homeless and transitionally homeless, and for those that have been on the streets for many years because they have numerous barriers. It might be mental illness, it might be substance abuse, it might be physical disability, looking at ways that you can outreach to those, get them connected, build relationships, get them connected to services, and end homelessness in housing. Also, a big one right now that the Commission is focusing on and our County Board of Supervisors is improving the efficacy of the emergency shelter system. You heard Larry talk about replacing the armories. That's the big focus, and I have some good news I'm going to announce to you later in the meeting. But that is to replace, I know I'm excited, what can I say? Okay, another goal is to make strategic improvements in the transitional housing system. If you're familiar with transitional housing, traditionally it had a lot of requirements that locked the doors and kept a lot of people out because they had numerous barriers. This is to try to lower the thresholds so that folks that are dealing with multiple issues can actually get placed in transitional housing and then on to permanent housing. And then looking at making sure that those that move into housing, that they have the right resources to remain housed so they don't fall back into homelessness. Improving data systems, you heard about that earlier, about coordinated intake and coordinated assessment. We want to do that in year-round emergency shelter so we can have centralized intake and assessment and connection to services. We've had a huge increase in shelters participating in the homeless management information system and also just improving the count of the homeless. Number 8, the organizational systems and structures, that's the Commission to End Homelessness. So it's not a plan that sits on a shelf to collect dust. No, you have a commission that's making sure that this plan gets implemented. And then advocating for social policy and systems change. Now, just imagine yourselves in a helicopter, and we're almost on the brink of ending homelessness, and you're looking down at Orange County, and you see that's our system to end homelessness right there. And the access centers and the emergency shelters, one of the big goals that we're looking to do is merge those into one center so that we can get people, shorten their length of stay. The goal is 30 days or less and get them connected to housing. And I'm proud to tell you that some of the initiatives that even our department has the privilege of helping in this, because I'm the director of the county's Housing Community Services, we have VASH vouchers for homeless veterans, almost 500 of them, 700 vouchers for special needs homeless through Shelter Plus Care. Through the county in a partnership with the healthcare agency, we had $33 million of Mental Health Services Act funding that now is in progress, 180 plus units of permanent supportive housing for persons that are mentally ill throughout the county. That is huge in terms of Orange County's history. All right, so now the opportunity. What the county has been doing is focusing on an opportunity to year-round the 2 armories. And because of the great leadership in this city and what you have done with your SB2 zone, we have been looking at areas in partnership with your staff and even some council members going out and looking at sites in the SB2 zone. And so this gives you a picture of the criteria that we were looking for. So in your SB2 zone, 20 to 30,000 square foot building, our acquisition price around $3.5+ million was what we were trying to focus on. The site needs to have accessibility to public transit, and then of course we have to go through due diligence for environmental review and regulatory requirements. We want to do a good job with the RFP to select an operator, which means that we're going to have multiple stakeholders. So our Commission to End Homelessness is going to play a role in helping craft this RFP because if your willingness to host year-round shelter, we want to work directly with your city in the development of the RFP, not just in terms of a seat for the city to review the operators that will submit bids, but even already your staff has come up with some great suggestions about things that we could do to improve the RFP, like, for example, attach your SB2 ordinance so that providers will know what the requirements of the ordinance are. We also have other partners, Real Estate Council, Community Services, and then because we're focusing on year-rounding the armories in both Santa Ana and hopefully Anaheim, there's an opportunity there which I can tell you about. Our board offices, 1st and 4th District, are very involved in this effort. Some of the requirements also that we're looking at when we want to replace the armories, so the RFP, it's going to be 200 beds, low threshold. That means anybody can be served and any population. So that's individuals, families, chronically homeless, transitionally homeless. We also want a vibrant multi-service center, so we envision veteran services, benefits assistance for CalWorks and GR, workforce development, healthcare services, mental health services, really a one-stop shop to address the issues that are causing homelessness and end homelessness. And again, you end it in housing, so you get them triaged, connected to services, with the focus of getting folks connected to housing. Strong good neighbor policy, so the goal is that this is an asset to the community, that it's not going to cause problems for businesses or residents or other stakeholders. We want to have a good neighbor policy, and actually our current operator, Mercy House, I believe does a great job with that, and that's written into our current contract requirements, and so we're going to have that same requirement for year-round shelter. And then just to make sure that there's coordinated services, so with police departments and other organizations, so that again it's not a negative impact to the community. Now I want to close with kind of where we are in terms of next steps. So I am pleased to tell you that on Tuesday our Board of Supervisors approved through the budget hearing process $3.6 million of county general fund to fill the gap to operate 2 200-bed year-round shelters. Now that approval is subject to the board's final budget adoption. In the county, they go through the budget hearings, and then the final budget adoption is on June 24th. So excited. And the county already has $6 million on hand right now for the capital development side. We still have gaps on the capital development side for 2 shelters, but that funding for the operating fills the gap in terms of our analysis to operate 2 shelters. What we hope to do in terms of next steps is hopefully issue an RFP sometime in July. Now, there's an exciting opportunity with the City of Anaheim. I'm sure that you have heard in, and also in some of our discussions with your council members, the City of Anaheim has purchased 3 acres that they are in discussions, it's not approved yet, but in discussions with the county about a potential opportunity to use that site for year-round shelter. And the City of Fullerton wants to be a partner in that, and so there are preliminary discussions about them potentially even having a financial investment. Of course, all of these things have to be approved by the respective governing bodies, but wow, some exciting things happening right now. So council members, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. We're going to change history in Orange County. Thank you.
Chairman, Pro Tem, and members of City Council, our final speaker of the evening is Scott Kuttner.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. With this discussion about establishing a new homeless multi-service center in Santa Ana, I'm here to assure you that staff are prepared to work to assist in implementing this vision, this agreed upon vision to move ahead. And obviously it will require additional work with regard to community engagement and outreach strategies. And so we've already had some initial discussions with owners of property, principals of schools in the vicinity of McFadden and Grand, which is the area that is sort of the initial focus of this effort. And we're prepared to organize a community forum the 4th week in July as well, for purposes of having more in-depth discussions with members of the community regarding the strategy, the geographic area, the types of services that will be offered, and we'll be working very closely with the County of Orange staff, Karen Roper and others, to discuss that strategy in greater detail. And I think that concludes our formal presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kuttner.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Before I go to public comments, and then we'll have some comments and a question time here after we're done with public comments, I'd like to ask our Senator Lou Correa if he's here to listen today, or if he has a few words that he'd like to say before I start public comment.
How many more millions is the state going to be able to commit to close the gap there, Mr. Senator?
Sorry, have selective hearing. He said he's sorry, he has selective hearing. The floor is yours, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, council members. I just wanted to thank you for holding this most important meeting today to address a very important issue in our society, which is homelessness. I've been out working in the Civic Center, trying to clean a little bit, contribute as a citizen to a little bit that I can. But that's not enough. I think all of us have to roll up our sleeves and come up, as the speakers have said, with a good public policy that all of us work together collaboratively to solve this problem. As I'm listening to the speakers, I continue to learn more and more about the issue. For the last few years, I've been a member of the Prop 63 Statewide Oversight and Accountability Act Steering Committee. That's for the mental health issue, so homelessness is directly correlated with mental health. So a lot of interesting issues here to address. I'm here to learn, and more importantly, I'm here to roll up my sleeves and work with you. And finally, I want to say muchas gracias for the leadership you're providing to this community for Orange County. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Correa. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call up each speaker, and then I'm going to say the next person is waiting in the wings so that we can follow up. And if the next speaker, if you're on this side, just wait on the sides here. That would expedite. I have a speaker, Tim Houchin, and then if we can have Britzy May waiting in the wings.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. My name is Tim Houchin. I'm an elected delegate and official spokesman for the Civic Center Roundtable. If you remember me, I was here at the council meeting and spoke in April. Okay, since then, the Roundtable delegates and myself have met with representatives from City Manager's Office, the Police Department, and with 2 members of the City Council. And you might be able to imagine some of the frustration that I had when I had to be informed of the date of this meeting by someone from the County Supervisor's Office. And for this reason, members of the Roundtable have concerns about how the city plans to communicate with us in the future. Now, our group was formed with the intention of ending our struggle with homelessness and to do so upon our own initiative. Since the beginning, we've reached out to church groups, nonprofits, and community advocates to forge an inclusive strategy for solving our problems. So far, this has been effective. It's an approach that we hope that we can extend to the elected officials here in Santa Ana. These days, people like to speak a lot about empowerment, and the way that you empower the homeless in the Civic Center is to include us in the decision-making regarding our current and future existence. Recently, council members Benavides and Reyna reached out to us, and we discussed our needs and concerns with them. And afterwards, we met with representatives from the County Supervisor's Office, and we were delighted to find that Councilman Reyna had already contacted them regarding solutions. Now, this to us is a positive indication that we are further along with resolving our issues than homeless people have ever been in the past in this city. After analysis of the 5-year plan, we find that it lacks the specifics of just how our needs will be met. We resolved that the relocation of the homeless at Civic Center to another SB2 area has little hope of successful implementation without the cooperation of our group, the Roundtable, and its constituents. We do, however, look forward to an inclusive approach by the city to solving our issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Houchin. Mr. Carl Brown, you're in the wings. Next speaker, it's Britzy May.
Good afternoon, Council, and it's Breezy, B-R-I-Z-Y.
I knew that. I was just testing you, but thank you.
I know. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Breezy May, or Mama Breezy to a lot of people out here in Civic Center. I'm a delegate and a member of the Civic Center Roundtable. I've come before you, some of you know me, and we have talked of our necessities out here at the Civic Center. And mainly our necessity is that cease with the homeless tickets. Got to stop that. If we're going to work together and get ahead and have our time to get together and get out of here, then help us. Don't give us tickets. Help us. There is a place here at the OCTA bus terminal. It would be a great place to have a day center. As you know, we all have necessities out here. To sleep, you give us camping tickets. You impound our belongings. It has our documents, our blankets, and we need those. You have also given us for after dark tickets. Well, this is where we stay and we sleep. We don't go to your home. We don't impound your stuff. So you're doing that to us. Now, our day center, if we were to get it, would be a perfect place because it's close. A lot of people are handicapped. We have access to places where we can go ask for jobs. We have places where we can go and try the library for old people like me. And of course, and most important is that the facilities for laundry, taking showers. Thank you for the hot water, by the way. After 7 years, I finally got a hot shower. And cold showers are not good. And of course, I want to say that we're going to go before OCTA and talk about the bus terminal. So please back us up. We've gone to the county. We've always talked to you guys. See our side of it. You have family. You wouldn't want your family out here in the cold, sleeping in the streets. It's not good. We don't like getting tickets. I don't think you guys like getting tickets either. So please hear our prayers, answer them. Don't be negative. Be positive. The Civic Center Roundtable got together. We started this. We want to move on. Give us a break. Stop the tickets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. May. Boston, you're in the wings. Next speaker is Carl Brown.
Boston had to get you to Sally.
Okay, then if he's not here, then Don, is it
Good evening,
Halek?
board.
In the wings. Excuse me one second. Don Halek in the wings.
Good evening, board members. My name is Carl Brown. Officially, I came here to talk about something else. And I'm a member of the Roundtable Committee, and I was asked to speak for, I guess, the leader of the committee. But anyway, when he asked me to speak, I was kind of against it because of the fact that, truthfully speaking, I'm not homeless. The reason he wanted me to come speak because I was homeless. And he liked the direction and the help that I got in Los Angeles to stop being homeless, because it can be stopped. The way I had it stopped was the fact that we have something called SRO, Skid Row housing. It's a permanent housing, and you can get in for $64 a month on GR. I got into the housing, and after I got into the housing, Section 8 came through, and I now have a Section 8 apartment, a permanent apartment. So I know it can work. So I just come here today to let you know this. And the fact of the matter is that something needs to be done. This has been going on for 30 years out here. I know you guys want your property back. We want to move on. Something permanent needs to be put into place so people can move on with their lives. And the man from the Mercy House, I commend him for saying that you don't need emergency shelter. You need a year-round permanent shelter so people can go, stay, get themselves together, and move on. Don't nobody want to be on the street for the rest of their life. This is something that people need to address. Come to the Roundtable Committee, get with us, find out what you can do, what you cannot do, because something needs to be done. This is not a it's something that, hey, you go home and get in your car and you come back, close your eyes and it's gone. It don't work like that. Once the dog come, we on the sidewalk laying down going to sleep. Something need to be done. And you might say, well, they homeless. They don't care. Yeah, we care. He just signed me up for college. After all this time, I'm 60 years old going back to college. It can work. He just registered me about a month ago. I started in the fall. I went from homeless to Skid Row housing to an apartment, now to going to college. It can work. Work with us so we can work with you so we can get your property back. It can work.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate your time. In the wings, Massimo Marin and Don Haylock. You're up the next speaker.
Good evening, everyone here. My name is Don Haylock. I've lived in Orange County since 1990 for 24 years. Homeless. I've been homeless for 17 years. I had an apartment for 5 years, and now I'm homeless again. For the 5 years that I had an apartment, I did have a job. So, it's not that I'm trying to be homeless, it's just that I had a job and things happened to me. I'm bipolar, and things happened to me and I couldn't maintain my job. And by not getting it right, whatever I needed to done for myself to maintain my housing, I lost my housing and now I'm on the streets. Like I said, I've been homeless for the last 2 years. I've not seen much change on the homeless community, and I'm here to spend as much time and energy to see change brought about. This was addressed to Mrs. Polito.
We'll tell him. Go ahead.
Please do.
We'll tell him.
Please do. I've worked on different community. I've worked on different community conferences. I know a few people here, and I met him a couple of times, and I just met the mayor again the other day. Just want to mention that, And I just want to plead to the members that we are people who are proud, who want things back again. And we need your help, and we've been trying hard to help ourselves. So if you can help us to reduce this homeless, it'd be better off for not just us here in the Civic Center, but for the community also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Igmar Rodas, you're in the wings. Next speaker is Massimo Marin.
It's Massimo. I'm with the Civic Center Roundtable. Good afternoon, Council. So, where to start? I guess I'll just go with one. We've got a lot of, I guess you could call them demands. We want to end homelessness too, but we've got absolutely no faith given the last 20 years or any reason that we should really listen to anyone at the county or the city level. Hasn't been helped out, so what we are really looking for, and we will present it to you probably in about a month, is really a community benefit agreement. We're looking for some kind of signature so that you say that you'll do something, that's cool. We've elected you to do that, and we can move on to other things. But we're not looking to come in here every city council like so many other community groups in here. Frankly, we've got a lot of work to do, as everyone here has already said. So if we could avoid that, that would be fantastic. I know the city is not all that keen on an idea of a community benefit agreement, but really, if we just talk about statistics and data, there's not really anything to back up previous positions. So we feel that that's a real positive way to move forward. Second, I guess I can address, there's been a lot of Jesus Christ talk in here from what I heard over the last, 2-3 council meetings. Let me tell you about that. I don't really know if this city council really understands that there's a difference between Jesus Christ and the cross. Jesus Christ is out there in the street. Some of them are here. We are out there to serve. Unfortunately, cities come up and all you can really do is show us the cross. Cities oppress the poor often, and what I want to tell you is that if Jesus Christ is the poor and his suffering or his wounds are their suffering, what is the cross? Well, the cross are the systems of oppression, the structures that keep us poor. So indeed, that's what we're trying to destroy here, systems that keep us poor. We can talk about homelessness, but we never talk about poverty. And that's the real issue here. It's just one manifests the other. We only have to talk about homelessness now because we have to talk about gentrification. Well, homelessness is always a gentrification issue. It just doesn't come to an apex all the time. So unfortunately, we have to get to this point. So if you want to know about Jesus Christ, know that he does not always survive. I have watched Christ die in the street, often at a bus bench. So know that when you talk about him in this chamber council, that he is dead outside sometimes, not always reborn, because we and the people that I live outside with could not get to him fast enough to remove him from the cross of oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. Desiree Sane is in the wings. Igmar Rodas, you're on 3 minutes.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Igmar Rodas. My company is SAPD. My slogan is Stop Abusing People's Derechos. Basically, I'm just here on support for the Civic Center Roundtable. And my specialty is an advocate against police abuse and brutality. During the past 5 or 6 months, I've been doing an investigation right here at the Civic Center regarding the homeless and the police issues and everything. And I find it pretty disturbing, especially with one officer in particular named Castellanos, in which case I'm about to file at least 10 citizen complaints about him. All right, just short and quick, talk to the police chief Rojas and see what could be done, because if he doesn't stop, we'll be forced to file an injunction against him.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'm having a hard time reading this, but I'm going to do my best. It's Dwight Smith, I believe. Hold on, Dwight, you're in the wings. No, you're in the wings, Dwight. The next speaker is Desiree Sane. So, Dwight Smith, you're in the wings. Next speaker is Desiree Sane. Is Desiree here? Desiree's not here? Okay. Then Mr. Dwight Smith, you're up. Robin Cook, you're in the wings.
Things have changed a lot since the city tried to arrest me for offering hospitality to homeless women. Thank you for that. I'd like to talk just briefly about food. Food is a great thing because it separates kind of planning from execution. If people don't have food, they just die. And we've been involved in the food business for over 20 years. So I'd like to make one suggestion, and I'd like to offer a suggestion. The one suggestion would be that perhaps this county could side with the homeless in asking the county to finally implement the SNAP Restaurant Meals Program. Nothing could go further to decrease the population in the Civic Center. The sad fact is that people congregate there because that's where we all serve food. If they could go to Jack in the Box or Subway, they wouldn't have to congregate there. They could actually go to other cities and look for work, and they could always be assured of finding a bathroom. Unlike the Civic Center, where I'm pretty certain the bathroom still only exists 12 hours a day, in spite of the protestations by the county. The second thing is I'd like to offer you, all of you, an opportunity to dine with the homeless and have conversations with them, either at 5:30 at the Catholic Worker or at 9:30 on Sunday morning. Mr. Benavides has been there, Mr. Sarmiento's been there. You guys are always welcome to come and talk with people as people about their concerns. It's a great way to demythologize the kind of always positive energy that's the mainstay of the county homeless prevention effort, the providers, the nonprofits. I mean, everyone's always positive. And yet, in my experience, the homeless population has grown older and younger and simultaneously larger over the last 20 years. The point-in-time count is not reliable, never has been. Even the Housing and Urban Development Administration of the United States government admits this. So it's a little soon to start separating the count from the number of volunteers that were obtained to do the count. It's an interactive variable. So it's a little soon to start celebrating the big demise in homeless, or the big decline in homelessness. But I would like to say, and actually we buy plates by the gross, and we don't seem to buy any fewer plates, although our food may have suffered some. We still serve just as many meals. You guys are invited to partake of them and meet with these people and find out what's really going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madeline Spencer, you're in the wings, and Mr. Robin Cook, you're up.
It's been a while since I've been here. My observations and information on the question of homelessness in the Civic Center area. There are different types of homeless people: the drug addict, the alcoholic, the mental problem people, etc. And then there's others, the travelers, the cowboys, etc. Those people are here forever, and as some leave, others will come and replace them. There is no end to homelessness. Things to think about: Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, Adventure City, and Stanton are all destination places. All those destination places provide bathroom facilities, except Santa Ana. I know our mayor has arranged for one bathroom to stay open, but I think they need more than just one. Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, the beach cities provide bathrooms, cold showers. The city of Avalon and the Twin Harbors on Catalina Island have bathrooms and hot showers. Quality of life to improve things for the homeless, the local residents, and the government workers. I think that the building number 16 that the county has abandoned for so many years be revamped to a service facility. I think the county should take the lead on providing the appropriate facilities and funding the sunk costs, and not toss the problem and expense onto the city of Santa Ana. With the people able to bathe, change into clean clothes, have bathrooms available, there would be improvement of quality of life for the homeless, the local residents, and the government and professional workers of the Civic Center. Maybe a city code enforcer should go across the street tomorrow and red tag that building and get the county off its behind. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Linda Tang, you're in the wings. Miss Madeline Spencer, you're up.
Good evening, council, staff, city manager. I'm just going to start just maybe a little background that you guys don't know about me, is that I've worked as a depth psychologist with individual and group therapy with homeless children, ages 6 through 12, incarcerated youth, ages 13 through 17, homeless adults, age 20 through 60. I've worked at the Braille Institute and also with disabled individuals doing group and individual therapy. I actually moved into going into community psychology because I realized that a lot of times it's the systems that are messed up, not the actual people who are being hurt by the system. After a series of personal encounters that I've had here in Santa Ana, I sought to go out and find out where exactly it was that individuals without homes could go. And that's where I initially found the Isaiah House and began feeding for 4 years here in Santa Ana in the Civic Center. During the whole time that I served the homeless, I never realized that after eating, they didn't have a place to use the restroom, especially in the evenings when the bathrooms shut down. So I was shocked when, during the Occupy movement, a worldwide movement that was looking at the fact that we have a system, an economic system, that somehow seems to leave out people and care more about profit, I was able to suddenly begin again and take a look at this problem afresh, because as you know, many of us had our General Assemblies out there in the Civic Center, and people were getting ticketed more heavily when we came out because they were being told that they didn't want them to come over and be with us out there at Civic Center. So we pretty much were causing conflicts in the Civic Center. From that point, Dwight actually came out and said there's 4 things that you can help with if you really want to help with this problem. The first is that the homeless out here don't have library cards. The second is that the homeless do not have access to, I'm sorry, is this, I haven't seen this on until now.
30 seconds, yeah.
Okay, the point is, we have a group that's been tracking this. We joined the Providers Forum. I was part of number 4, Policy Implementation Group. The Providers Forum, during this time, I was able to see the structures that they're working in, which a lot of times has a lot to do with transitional shelter, but where the problem is emergency shelters. And we've seen best practices in Fullerton. They have a wonderful system for churches that have gotten together and done certain things. So going along, there is a way to locally take care of a series of these problems, and we have looked at the multipurpose center, the shelter program. Those are great ideas, and there's things that can be done tomorrow, which have been done with the consortium of churches over in Costa Mesa who've dealt with this problem, so that people have a place to actually put their things, and some of the problems that you guys have right now here on the streets can be gone tomorrow very easily if you guys take a look at those. And what I basically was able to see
You
is...
could wrap up, Ms. Spencer.
Yeah, the ground issue is a little bit different than what people are looking at from the transitional shelter. And this problem of homelessness can be taken care of relatively quickly if the city is to work with the homeless and also to do something tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Thank you. I apologize if I get your first name wrong, but it's I'm not sure if it's Sergio I'm sorry, it's McGuigan. It's Mr. McGuigan. Come on up. You're in the wings. Next speaker's Linda Tang. That first name, I don't know. It's a little
Good
interesting.
evening. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and honorable council members. My name is Linda Tang, and I'm here on behalf of the Kennedy Commission. We advocate for the development of homes affordable to lower-income families in Orange County, but more importantly, I'm here as a Santa Ana resident. And I just want to be here and thank all of you for taking your time and effort to really tackle this issue of homelessness in the city, because there's definitely a need to address it. Earlier, there was a slide that showed that there were 850 individuals that were identified as homeless in the city, but honestly, it's not really including those who are at risk of being homeless. We're not counting those who are living in motels and scraping day by day. I strongly believe that one of the most effective ways to solve homelessness is to build permanent, affordable homes with supportive services. And we need to prioritize and identify appropriate sites that are near transit and supportive services for these type of developments. I know the mayor is not here, but I was hoping you guys can pass my request that I wanted him to take on this challenge. Last week, First Lady Michelle Obama, the VA, and HUD announced the creation of the Mayor's Challenge to End Homeless Veterans by 2015. Many cities across the nation have committed their pledge to be a part of this movement, and I think this is a great opportunity that the city can be a part of. I hope that we can continue this discussion. We are all here to work with you and to support you to get this ball moving, and we really look forward to your leadership. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Peter Katz, you're on deck. Mr. Steve McGuigan, you're up next.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. First thing I'm going to do when I get home is practice my penmanship a little bit.
That's okay.
So we don't do that again.
It might be my vision.
Yeah. I wanted to thank you tonight. Mr. Haynes said something that was very important earlier. He said back in 1990, the council sat up there and made some decisions that have sort of steered the public-private and neighborhood association policy in terms of getting together and bringing those three entities together and being able to put together some of the best housing for homeless here in Santa Ana. The HIV housing and some of the Mercy House shelters are known far and wide as some of the best operations around. I think that that's an important partnership as you sit up there and consider what you're going to be doing here tonight, or not tonight, but going into the future and looking at your policies. I know that the council has made a decision or made a policy recently that talked about some of the larger housing they're going to be doing somewhere in the south end of town that's going to have a lot of beds, and I think that that's a great start. But I think that part of reintroducing people from homelessness back into normal society is not sticking them over in a corner, but putting them actually into the neighborhoods and integrating them into normal life with the rest of us here. We have transit, we have shopping availability, we have all kinds of things going on in the neighborhoods that these people can become a part of, and they are willing and wanting to become a part of as they turn their lives around and get off the streets of Santa Ana. It's a very difficult prospect for them. I wanted to speak to you real quickly about a public safety item. There has been discussion at the executive level at some of the recent Parks and Rec Commission meetings regarding turning the Civic Center into a park. I don't know if this is still under discussion, but this is a very, very, very bad direction. There are rules and ordinances that govern parks and things that you can do in parks that would really have an impact on a lot of the people you see in this room and you see out there. Some of those things are already in place in the Civic Center in particular, but adding another layer of ability to cite and criminalize homelessness would be a very bad direction, and I urge you not to go that direction. Lastly, I just want to thank you for taking this issue on. I know that myself, the organizations I work with, and the residents of Santa Ana are looking for a direction, and they're looking to you for your leadership on this issue going into the future to help not necessarily resolve the problem, but to provide a dignified, responsible approach and a strategic plan for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cindy Avila, you're on deck. Mr. Peter Katz, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a great opportunity for people to discuss homelessness. 1/4 of our homeless people out there are vets that serve this country in overseas assignments. And we need to do a better job for our vets. Recently, we just passed Proposition 41 to create housing for our vets. Is this going to wind up like Section 8 housing? Or is this all the veteran housing going to wind up in Santa Ana for this county because nobody wants it in their backyard? We have a great housing project at Memory Lane that is an example that we can do in this city where you have affordable housing for people on the streets, where they get the services on the ground floor. It's the state of the art. It's not the cheapest contract, the lowest bid, and stuck in the densely populated neighborhood. You can't do that and expect people to live like human beings. And I'm speaking from an experience. I lived on the streets. I went on to become a millionaire. And when 9/11 happened, I wound up back on the streets and lost it all. So I know what these people are going through and how they struggle. I've talked to vets. I sit on the Comlink board. I go into neighborhoods. I look at the crime report statistics. 30 to 40% of those statistics, it doesn't matter what part of the city, are domestic violence incidents. And what happens in a domestic violence instance? You have a restraining order. One party winds up on the street. They can't get back with their kids and their families. We need to challenge the court system to do better, not to find people to create counseling services so families can learn how to live together. These are some of the things that we can do. Jobs, the gentleman talked about it. He's going to college. Now he's got to find a job, but this can happen if you put a roof over their head. We have over 100 faith-based organizations in the city. They're all in little tiny silos. They don't talk to each other. They need to come together. Instead of coming down here and feeding people at the Civic Center, let's feed them in their backyard. You know, nobody wants to feed them in their backyard. I mean, they're pariah out there. And you take their stuff. These are human beings. You're not going to eliminate homelessness. There's the gypsy in all of us. Some of us do find jobs, whether they're airline pilots, firefighters, cruise ship employees. They're still gypsies, and they travel just the same way as people that live on the street, except they have a meal and a roof over their head. So, you know, these are people too. And we're all one paycheck away from this street. So anything could happen, like terminal illness, who knows? So let's just have a little compassion. But the faith-based organizations are in the business of saving souls. So let's save some souls and do it in their yard. Get together and pool your resources, and let's create some housing that we could be proud of and get some of these people off the street. There's no reason for that.
Mr. Katz, can you wrap up, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cindy Avila, last but not least. Is she here? Oh, okay. You can just give them to the clerk and then she'll give them out to us.
Hi, Council. Thanks
Hello.
for having this meeting. My name is Cindy with Churches for Community. We started a group 2 years ago, just seeing the need within the Civic Center of all these churches and groups coming together and duplicating services. And we realized that there needs to be some kind of collaboration. What I want to talk to you about today is a check-in center, which I think fulfills a lot of the
Ms.
separate
Avila, can you
needs.
speak into
Sorry.
the mic a little bit?
So a check-in center is basically a place where people experiencing homelessness can check off their belongings, which frees them up to be able to do more productive things throughout their day and utilize the resources. It also helps the city. And also is a nice hub where all the groups can come together and collaborate on more effective, sustainable solutions. So in here is kind of a quick summary of it, as well as paper clipped in the back is all the services that are being provided as of now, at least that are documented. And I have, and then on the left-hand side is a lot of what's happening over in Anaheim. They started their check-in center a year ago, and James is going to discuss that. He's from Mercy House.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Yeah, Cindy asked me to come in to just speak a little bit about what Mercy House is doing over at the check-in center at La Palma Park. Basically, were contracted by the city back in July to go into La Palma Park to see if we could help with the blight and with the increased number of homeless people that were living in the park. And so in September, we opened up the check-in center, and you have pictures there, and you have some numbers that you can look at. But basically, what we thought when we started is that we targeted about 100 people that we thought we would serve. Over time, that number has grown to, but the unique thing about it is that the numbers in the park haven't grown. It's just the services that we've been able to provide. So to date, we have served over 412 people unduplicated. Last month, as of May 31st, we're actively serving 267 people. We're providing storage, we're providing cell phone charging, we're giving people IDs for those who don't have it so they can go and get other services, other parts of the city and within the county. We're also giving them resources to where they can find housing, getting some people into rehabs for substance abuse, job leads. We're offering bus passes on a limited basis when people can show that they have legitimate appointments that need to be made. And then also we were connected with outreach from the county. They come out and they do outreach themselves. And in addition, we also provide outreach in addition to what we do at the check-in center. Now, the check-in center basically is where they store their belongings, And then we do outreach about 5 days a week to go out, not only to the homeless, but also to the surrounding businesses to see how they're doing, to see if there are any issues that we can resolve through the connection that we have with the outreach, with the folks that are staying in the park. So I don't want to talk long about it because you have a lot of those numbers there.
Can you please
The
wrap
one
up
thing that
your-
I will say is that we did find that we are getting people off the street, and we found that as one of the concerns was that the number of homeless individuals will go up in the park, and it actually has declined. Thank you.
So until there's like an emergency shelter and housing available, this is the first step, I think, in collaborating everything together as the groundwork for implementing that into.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the speakers, especially I think this group was really conscious of adhering to our 3-minute rule, which I appreciate. I'm going to start with Councilman Roman Reyna, and then I'm going to go over to Councilwoman Michelle Martinez. Councilman Reyna.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this brainstorming session and figure out what's the best course of action for us to move forward. This is an issue that I think affects everyone. At the end of the day, we're talking about basic human rights and dignity, and I think we definitely need to move forward in that direction. One of the things that we've talked about or we've heard today was a lot of different committees that are coming together collaboratively to address some of these issues. I mentioned it before, and I'm definitely going to mention it again. I think it's key and critical, and it's imperative that we have some of the homeless part of that particular committee, whether it be Tim and one of the young ladies. They have different challenges and different needs, and we want to take consideration both of them. But I really do think that we need to have representation of the population that we're focusing on, so we really know about the course of action that we're taking, if it really is the challenges or needs, or they're going to fix the challenges that they're concerned with. I think that's the greatest starting point, is to include them in that conversation. I'm eagerly excited as we move forward. I definitely want to be part of the process and as we move forward, and I'm looking forward to really rolling up our sleeves and getting to work.
Thank you, Mr. Roman Reyna. Thank you, Council Member. Now we're going to go with Councilwoman Michelle Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I will be brief, and I'm going to just go more from a policy perspective. I think all of you know that we're very compassionate council members, but at the end of the day, and Mr. Hang said it very well, it's really about the last strategy, and that is creating permanent housing. And that's the direction that we need to take. And we just passed our 5-year housing element plan. And in that housing element plan, certainly we didn't reach every group. But I will tell you that we did include this time around our veterans, artist housing, and, as soon as that plan was approved by this council, I know I personally have gone to work with our staff, and, we're in the process at looking at certain properties where we possibly can look at some veteran housing and artist housing. And our staff is dedicated and are looking at that. As the last council meeting, many of my colleagues, they moved forward in regards to receiverships in certain properties. So look, there are opportunities here where we could have permanent housing for this issue. At the end of the day, we understand that there are various organizations doing certain things, but I'll tell you, the issue that I've always had a concern with is that everyone is trying to be king of the hill. We don't work collectively. We don't work with government. We don't work with the faith-based community and the nonprofit organizations. I think Anaheim is doing a fabulous job, and I want to commend you and I want to thank you for bringing your collaborative forward. I think it's a great strategy. I also want to thank the young lady, Cindy, for bringing Churches with Community, because this is really the strategies that we need to really bring forward to the city of Santa Ana. And I am certainly in agreement with Councilman Reyna that folks that are homeless should be part of these collaboratives, right? The people that we're trying to serve, they should be at the table. And another important thing that I really would like for our staff as we move forward with whatever strategy we decide as a council to deal with this problem is, one, realize that the city of Santa Ana cannot take full responsibility for the homeless issue in Orange County. I believe now that we have been very vocal that the county has now stepped up. And I do want to commend the Board of Supervisors and other cities like Anaheim, like Costa Mesa, like Fullerton, now really trying to get their their hands wrapped around with this issue. It's not only Santa Ana. I'll tell you that we are the Civic Center, but it's not our full responsibility. And so I just want to commend the county for really stepping up. But another important part that we need to keep in mind is that data is important. And in our 5-year strategic plan, in regards to health and wellness, this is an issue that has to deal with health and wellness, and hoping that in the next 5 years that we will fund this, and that is to have all the data available from every agency within the city of Santa Ana online, so that we can give this information to nonprofit organizations. A lot of times we're counting on the healthcare agencies to accumulate data for 34 cities. Guess what? That's a lot of work. We need to step up to the plate as individual municipalities to have the data that's necessary to address these issues. And so these are policy decisions that we need to make a commitment in saying that we're going to put our money where our mouth is, right? And it costs money to put data online and gather that information. And so as we look next year within the 5-year strategic plan, and there's funding opportunities, we need to step up to the plate and realize that where are we going to dedicate our money? And so these are some issues that we need to address, one within the housing, and I would like to ask our staff to look at what resources we have for funding, whether it be for veteran housing, through HUD, through the state level. We need to accumulate all that data to realize where are these resources where the city could apply, work with the private and nonprofit organizations to start building these policy strategies to have sustainability for housing. Yes, we're going to have these shelters in Fullerton and Santa Ana, but at the end of the day, that's not solving the problem. And I want to end with this. You know, not too long ago, this city council made a commitment to the special needs community. And let me tell you, there was a lot of resistance. But this council stepped up to the plate and said, we need to provide housing to special needs. And someone mentioned that project that was on Memory Lane. And let me tell you, it is a beautiful example of what could happen if you stand up to what's right. And I want to thank not only our city manager, our police chief, and our police that are out there. I know that there are issues, that there are confrontations. We need to come together. We need to communicate. And I tell you, my frustration with government is communication and coordination. And they know that. That's my number one frustration. I'm used to wanting things immediately, and I want them coordinated, and I want to, you know, I want people to communicate so we're all on the same page. And so I understand your frustrations. We need to do a better job. Just government hasn't been good at that. It's all about bureaucracy, and we have to realize that the people that we serve, we need to go out to them directly. And so I want you to be patient. We're moving in that direction. I think our staff understands that. I think our police department understands that. It's a culture shift. It's not an easy one to address, but we're dealing with it. And so I ask you to be patient. And one last thing, I want to see what is it that we can do. We have this HEART program, and I think it's a wonderful pilot, and I think we've now are in our third year. We're on our third year, and we've made a lot of significant progress, and I want to thank our police department, but I also think that we have to be more sensitive, more humane. People have belongings. What can we do as a city to work with some of our storage companies or providing lockers where these folks can have access to be putting their belongings, where they can go and access them? We have to look at issues of that sort. Who can we work with? What storage companies are near the Civic Center? And there are many storage companies that we can partner with where these folks can put their belongings. And I'm not an expert, but I hope that our police department and our city manager can look at some ideas of such to see how we can partner to making sure that we don't have to cite you and take your belongings. I understand that you need your things, and I want to continue to encourage all of you to please do go to OCTA. Look, this is, yes, the Depot Center doesn't belong to the city of Santa Ana. So I'm glad you understand that. So it's not because we don't want to give you access, it's because it doesn't belong to us. And so again, everyone has to, really understand that we all play different roles. up here, and we're trying to do as much as we can. And so I just want all of you to know, to be respectful towards our police department. I know, that there are issues, but I think they're out there wanting to communicate with you. And sometimes I know that there's going to be a lack of disrespect for whatever reason because someone said something or vice versa. But not everyone is a bad cop, right? I think most of our cops that are out there in the Civic Center, they care and they're trying to make a difference. And I'm not here just speaking up here and trying to speak positively about our cops, because I know not every council member is a good council member. Not every mayor is a good mayor. Not every city manager is a good city manager. Not every teacher is a good teacher in society. There are always going to be bad apples. But please give our police department the benefit of the doubt. We have our new police chief here who's trying to really improve communications with the public. I know you're shaking your head, and it's okay. And look, I'm gonna come out there into the Civic Center, and hoping when our police officers are out there, and I want you to continue to still communicate with our city manager's office and of course with the city council, but understand that at the end of the day, we all have to work with one another, and we have our public safety that is out there in the Civic Center, and they will continue to be out there, and I just hope that we can be respectful towards one another to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez. Councilmember David Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Oftentimes I highlight, especially during the regular council meetings as we wrap up, all of the great things that are going on in the city of Santa Ana, great events, new restaurants opening up, a lot of positive things. Today, I'm super excited by this conversation, by the energy. This is one of those great things that is going on in the city of Santa Ana. I think for me, for us, it's a privilege to be able to be sitting on this council during this time. During our time on the council over the last couple of years, a couple of mentions have been made on some of the affordable housing, the dignified housing that's been created for families, low-income families, new construction that hadn't occurred in this city for many years, if ever. Really, one of them was mentioned over at Memory Lane. There's a station district, and I think what we see here on the council is folks that are committed. That there's this sense that there's this leadership and this compassion coming together, where this idea of addressing the challenge of homelessness is you have folks here that are committed and want to be able to actually see it come together and begin to address in a very real way. So city manager, you were mentioned or this Phoenix was mentioned as an example. So no pressure, but you got to deliver, man. These folks are going to be waiting for you to help us make this happen. And you have a council here that is supportive and ready and willing to act. I want to thank all the speakers who came. Everybody. Again, that's just one of the examples, one of the signs. You had folks that are sometimes in other cities we've actually seen and heard of people with this idea of not in my backyard. We don't want to see certain things here. You had members of the community, residents coming out saying, yes, this is right. Yes, this is time. And we as a city want to be leaders. So from the different members of the community, residents, and others, want to recognize particular, folks like Tim Hochin from Civic Center Roundtable. I think that the group coming together and having creating a collective voice, that's awesome. That's democracy in action, and we're here as elected representatives to serve and respond to all who live in our community, whether they have a roof over their head or not. So I appreciate you all coming together. Larry Haynes and what you've been doing through Mercy House and your leadership and commitment, service there. Appreciate your feedback and input here today. Hopefully action steps that we can be able to move forward with. Dwight Smith and Leah, it's great to see you, Dwight. Good to see you up and around. It was frankly the reality of what the homeless community face became more real to me back in September when I had an opportunity to hang out with you and the group there and serve. Frankly, it was very uncomfortable initially because it's what do you say? How do I approach this? but you nudged us and pushed and said, it's about sharing a meal with folks, just chat with them, tell your story, hear their story. And once I did that, it was moving, compelling. It was one of those things where, frankly, wasn't the same driving up to Ross Street and parking my car, come up City Hall to come to one of these meetings. It was one of those things where I just felt like we are in a position to do something needs to be done, and we're in a position to be able to do something. So I want to thank you for that. Mama Brizzy, for being our conscience. Thank you for coming and speaking on behalf of those out there in the community. Cindy as well, Churches for Community. Thank you. So at this point, what we have is a lot of great ideas, challenge, I think, that's set before us. The word of dignity was mentioned. I think that's what it comes down to, right? Being able to bring dignity to people, and we have an opportunity again to do that. So as far as next steps, just some of the things, I'm glad that we're going to be a part of the RFP with the county. Thank you for including us. Hopefully we can, I think we've already started that conversation. So to truly be a part of, again, not just at the end, kind of the last minute review, right before, day before it goes out, but actually be integrated, because we do want to be a part of the solution. I appreciate the fact that we have Senator Correa here, because as we look at ideas, Councilwoman Martinez mentioned the permanent housing, the idea of permanent supportive housing. State of Utah has taken some leadership, I understand, and they've made their commitment to direct funds at the state level towards creating some of that housing and supporting out there the communities out there who are ready to take the lead. So I think what we have here in Santa Ana and this team that you have here before you of council members is folks that are ready and willing, and it is going to take the county, it is going to take definitely other partners, a faith community, the state as well, hopefully will be able to partner up with us to be able to help us come up with this comprehensive long-term solution. One of the key first steps, I think what we heard as a recurring theme is this idea of a check-in center. And it seems like it's something that is not necessarily that very a huge challenge to undertake. It seems like as far as financially, as far as finding a location, it seems like it's a fairly attainable solution. So I want to ask our city manager to help us as maybe one of the first steps that we might be able to take. And to my colleagues, I don't know if I definitely want to make sure that this is just the beginning of the dialogue, but that we actually continue and put action steps. So whether it's we decided to do this on an ongoing, or whether we send this back over to the Public Safety Neighborhood Improvement Committee or an ad hoc, whatever the case might be. But let's make sure to keep the conversation going and take some action steps. I know we're all are ready and willing to do that. So as chairman of the Public Safety, and I know Councilwoman Martinez, who sits on that committee, and as does Councilman Reyna, we'd be ready and willing for it to come to that committee, but definitely open to suggestions from the rest. I know you're all committed as well. So long as we just are able to move forward, are ready and willing to make it happen, and I'm excited because I think we are on the right track, and we will be able to take this on and address this real needs. So thank you all for being here, being a part of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. Councilmember Vince Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I think a lot has already been said, so I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said before me. I just want to thank everybody who's come out here and spoken, but especially thank those of you who've been advocates for so long, because we've seen your faces come before us and we've heard your words, and I hope that you all realize that this is the beginning of a conversation that hasn't been had for a while. So it's a good thing that we're all here and we've listened and we're moving forward. So I do want to thank our senator who's in the audience, because a lot of times many elected officials go to an event or go to a workshop or a seminar and they say hello and then they leave. So it's nice to see somebody who's sticking around and listening and learning, as we all are. So thank you, Senator, for spending the time more than anything. And I appreciate that. And I want to thank the supervisors across the street, and in particular, I believe Supervisor Nelson, because I know he's on the commission with our city manager. And it took a while, because I know when this conversation was first intended to happen, we didn't have a lot of receptiveness from our neighbors across the street. And the county is an integral part of this. We can't do this alone. This whole area is a JPA, and it's governed by both bodies, the county Board of Supervisors and the City Council. So we couldn't do it alone. So I'm glad that there's political will across the street, because there's certainly political will here. And I also want to thank our city manager, because as he said, he hasn't joined any other commissions to date, and this is the first one that he's joined, this commission to end homelessness. So I think it speaks volumes. I'm sure he's been asked and approached by many other commissions for him to join and become a member, and I'm sure he will, but it's symbolic that this is his first one. And so it's important that he's our voice here. So thank you, Mr. City Manager. I just want to say that I think you've heard that all of us are ready to work, as you all are. We're going to need to do this together. We're going to have to work with our partners across the street, in Sacramento, in Washington, all of us, our residents, our neighbors, our stakeholders, to resolve this. This isn't an easy fix. And to end homelessness is it's a nebulous term, because I don't know how you end it. I know Dwight Smith, has dedicated his life to doing this, and I've been fortunate and blessed enough to go visit him at the Catholic Charities and see what he's done. And it's a lifelong effort. I mean, this is just something that is difficult for us to resolve, but we need to begin. We can't use the excuse that it's so overwhelming that we just won't start. Personally, myself, I'm a bankruptcy attorney, and somebody said it well. Many families are just one paycheck away from being homeless. They're one illness away from being homeless. So I've seen many of my clients that we've tried to help, and some we haven't been able to, fall into very, very difficult times. So it's a very personal thing for us, because those of us who've been raised here in the city, these are our neighbors. These are people we went to school with. These are people who taught us. These are people whose kids we've known all our lives. So it is very personal. It is very important. So I think that the humanity in all of us is going to be important for us to prevail. And I think we have that here. And I'm very glad that we're having this conversation, because this is a family. This is an extended network of nonprofits, faith-based organizations, but more than anything, just caring neighbors. And that's important. So I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank my colleagues up here who are going to be lending their time and their effort to support a good solution, because I think what we have here is it's not really working. I think there's a lot of good efforts, but what's happening here in the Civic Center just is not an effective way to deliver services and resources. We can do better. We can do much, much better. So finally, the only thing I wanted to say is somebody mentioned vouchers for restaurants and food and meals from the county. Maybe that's something we can discuss, and maybe could be mentioned at the commission. But the other thing was vouchers for transportation, and maybe the Transit Authority can help us with that as well. I think if there's some way we can continue this conversation and have that happen, mobility is important, going to jobs, getting resources at different parts of the county. It's vital. So that, along with my final point, which is shared responsibility. Santa Ana and the county are ready to do its share, but our 33 other cities, and I'm very proud and happy to say that leadership has been shown at Anaheim and Fullerton, but we need the other 30 cities in the county to step up, because this isn't a Santa Ana problem. It's not a Fullerton or Anaheim problem. This is a regional county problem. So hopefully everybody will help us out, and let's begin the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vince Sarmiento. Again, thank you for coming out. Just a little, as speakers were coming up, and this is good that we have these conversations, but I noticed that some speakers were very agitated and a little bit frustrated, and rightfully so. And I heard the term, we've been waiting for 20 to 30 years. And I just want to tell you something. This council and I'm just going to lay it all out because I'm not going to hesitate and sugarcoat. This council was very conservative up until 2006. In 2006, that's when you saw the shift, the progressive shift on this council. I call it the 06ers. There's 4 of us up here, and then Mr. Roman Reina just joined us, and he's moving right along with his progressive movement. And that is why you have the things you have today. But they don't come overnight. This is just the beginning. But you see, let me tell you, you've been to council meetings in different cities where they don't care. And they'll just listen and play, talk and let you kind of go do your thing, but they're not going to take any actions over this. Let me just let you know, this council was the first one that brought translation equipment so that our Spanish-speaking residents could understand what's going on in the meetings. How can you expect graffiti to get torn or neighborhoods to beautify in central Santa Ana where the predominant language is Spanish if they don't know how to operate within the system in the city? So that was the first step. The other thing is we created a Harvey Milk Day. We wanted our gay, lesbian, transgender community to know that they are welcome in the city, that they could have events in this city. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? It was this council that did that. Did we take a lot of shots and a lot of hits for that? Of course we did. But it didn't matter because there is a paradigm. There's a heart behind what we stand for. What we also did is we inherited a budget from the previous council and the previous leadership that almost put us into bankruptcy. It was this council that got us out of it. And it was this council that brought in our city manager, who now has us at a $10 million surplus. It's this council that said we're going to do different things. We're going to change things around without cutting our staff to be able to balance the budget. What's really important is that we have a mayor who for many, many years said, I don't want to create affordable housing in Santa Ana because it's going to bring in more poor people. We said, hey, let me just let you in on a little secret. I know you live in the biggest property in North Santa Ana, but poor people already live here. And poor people are already living here. The question is, do we want to get those people out of poverty? And the way you do that to start with is with dignified housing. And so this group right here took a lot of hits. Do you remember that, Ms. Martinez? It was a jam-packed audience on not allowing an affordable housing project. You know this. Some of you guys are out there because you developed it or you helped develop it. But it was this huge fight to get affordable housing here in Santa Ana. This council has said, I don't want to hear it. We have people here who need dignified housing. We're going to continue to do it. You heard Ms. Councilwoman Michelle Martinez, who talked about people with special needs and the housing that we've created there. Look, we have a strategic plan. We never had a strategic plan. In 20 years, we never had a strategic plan. What council, what city manager allows your city to run without a strategic plan? You need a plan. We got together with you, the community. Sacred was here. And then from right here, from this microphone, we ironed out a strategic plan. We are working towards making it better each time. This is our first go-around. But I want to let everyone know this. I understand your frustration. I'm frustrated too. I was frustrated for many years. That's the reason why we ran for office, is because we were frustrated with the way things were being done and we wanted to change it. Here we have a whole new staff. We have a new city manager, a new city attorney, a new clerk, a new chief of police. He hasn't even been on the job for 1 year yet. Let's give the brother a little chance to start making things happen. Trust me, because I know his heart is in the right place. Look, I remember years ago, I was driving in a car. I had a cousin who was in a bad car accident, so she was always traumatized about being in a car, and I'm driving down the highway, and it was a 2-lane road, and she had the hiccups. And I had read this study that if you scare them really bad, they lose the hiccups, right? So I'm driving down the road, and she had the hiccups. She keeps hiccuping, and I said to her, "Oh shoot, you know what? Can you look down there on your floorboard, see if there's? I think I dropped something down there." And as she ducked down, I went, "Oh shoot!" And I pretended like I was going to press the brake, and she jumped up, and she's like, "Oh!" And she starts to smack me in my arm. "What are you doing? You scared the heck out of me." I said, "Where are your hiccups?" And she's like, "Oh." I said, right, that's what I was trying to do. So here's what I'm saying. I was trying to help her. We are trying to help too. No, hear me out. We are trying to help too. Don't smack me in the arm, it's going to hurt. because we're trying to do this. No, but I understand people's agitation, and I feel you. But give us a chance. Give us an opportunity, because we want to make something better. We want to do something better. And so, last but not least, we have a city manager who has experience in this. And that is one of the main reasons that we brought him here, is because we have a city manager who's done many things in Phoenix, which was one of the best run cities in America, and he's now with us today. Let's go ahead. Let's continue the dialogue. We're going to make something happen. This is a county issue, but we are going to take responsibility for our Santa Ana issue. And I encourage you that every time you see our mayor, you let him know that you hope that he goes along with his council, who believes in dignified housing, who believes in creating a better opportunity for our homeless community so that we can make something happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask our city manager, Councilman Roman Reina asked if we could put something on the following agenda with a presentation that shows where we are with OCFA and what the cost would be if we were able to bring Santa Ana Fire Department back into the city of Santa Ana. If we could, what the current contract looks like and so forth, I'd greatly appreciate it. I think today was a good step. I think today was a good day. Thank you. Thank you for everybody.
Mayor Pro Tem, very quickly too, I know it's a special meeting, but just on Tuesday, we could possibly put something in closing in memory of Rita Corcoran. One of our residents has just passed away. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.